A couple uploads ago, we looked at a creator named Azzyland, why she left the internet, and the beef she was in with Sniper Wolf. During that video, I played a snippet of another video made by a creator named NerdCity, but I came to realize that he stopped posting to his channel, and there were a ton of videos made about him within the past few months. In the Azzyland video, I asked you all if you wanted me to make a video looking at NerdCity and what happened to his channel. So, here we are. In this video, we will look at the downfall of a hypocritical man who turned against his community when people would criticize his morals. That and him having transphobic beliefs and a weird obsession with defending DrDisrespect after DrDisrespect admitted to these allegations against him. These are just some of the reasons why his audience lost interest in his videos. But before we get into that, please subscribe to join the best community on YouTube. If you are unfamiliar with NerdCity and his content, that's okay, because so am I. So let's look at his channel quickly to see what this guy is all about. NerdCity has a YouTube channel with a little over 900,000 subscribers, but at one point in his career, this subscriber count was closer to 1 million subscribers. NerdCity's channel has been around for about 10 years, with his most popular videos having around 3 to 3.5 million views. These videos, for the most part, were entertaining, and NerdCity put a lot of effort into his editing, which I can see why people enjoyed his content. Looking at his latest videos, there's an almost 2-year gap between a video titled Lily Pond's Thought Patrol and the worst YouTuber of all time. The video that he posted after his break was really well received, with people in the comments giving NerdCity his flowers, with people saying, the research, the editing, the charisma, the comedic relief, my goodness, NerdCity never disappoints. This is higher quality than the majority of professionally produced documentaries. Shout out to Colossal as well. Couldn't have chosen anyone better to do this with. Props. And your insane commitment to props, character play, mood setting, research and evidence, editing, story flow, multiple media sources. Holy, I could go on. For some reason I thought of Bill Nye. Not because your work is comedic in any way, but with the production quality being television level, entertaining delivery, and fun characters with jokes that lighten the mood. I can't believe I just found your channel. After this video, he only posted 3 more times. The video right after the J-Station video showed the first glimpse of hypocrisy by NerdCity. In this video titled The Most Expensive Art, NerdCity spends the 42-minute duration bashing NFTs and people like Gary Vee for pushing NFTs onto regular people. Which is great. NFTs are pretty trash and are kind of irrelevant now. They had their moment in the sun, but quickly burned out. The issue with this video was the ending, where again NerdCity spent the entire duration calling out NFTs, but then shilling out his own project to make money on, which was called the Dead Avatar Project.
Now all of the same marketers are suddenly talking about AI and pivoting their products to incorporate AI. Watch out. The same thing is happening where the bulls and the bears are probably right. Now, I knew that the mania sweeping through collectibles and everything at once, really, games, VHS, sneakers, rare motorcycles, was going to die back down. I knew that real price discovery on all rare collectibles was being punted into the future. As I was saying that whole time, this is a tutorial for artists. Artists who can make a good product, who already are, and who have a good relationship with their community. Setting a good example was going to be important. They needed something to be able to look at and say, okay, here's kind of like what I'm trying to build, and have it not be a scam. Preserving that opportunity for them was of paramount importance. Now, obviously, making money is part of the experiment. For it to be successful, it has to be profitable. But that's like number 3 or 4 on my list. Above that is the example, the sets, and above even that is making a good quality product, something that I'm proud of.
Bro, is this about making money for you, or is it about proving your point? Like, I don't even know what it is, man.
It's becoming about both for me. I don't know what it's becoming for you.
Come on, man.
I love the process of creating things, and I love collecting, obviously. And I know that both of those things can be fun, but only when approached with care. Which brings us to today's sponsor. Ourselves, and potentially you.
This was when the tides would change and people started to criticize his content for his blatant hypocrisy. He was working on this project for a few years when this video was originally made, so it was a weird video to post knowing that you are doing the same exact thing. Nerd City just felt morally in the right because he spent more time on the project. I can see why people felt upset about this video. It's kind of like if a creator was saying how much they hate Starbucks coffee, but then promote their own coffee made with the same exact products. Like, oh, buy my NFT. It's way better than those other creators' projects because you can trust me. Nerd City was on a generational run, making a video on Azzyland, exposing Sniper Wolf for how she treated Azzyland, which was a video that I clipped from my video on Azzyland. Then he'd make a video on Sniper Wolf, which also did numbers for his channel. But this is where the generational run would come to a screeching halt. You see, Nerd City is an avid Reddit user, but he's also someone that we will come to find out does not handle criticism great. So when you pair these two things together, you get someone who will defend himself in subreddits for absolutely no reason. Nerd City at this time was blossoming into a really great content creator, and a lot of people liked his videos, and the effort that he would put into them. But going onto these subreddits and replying to random people online only gives the internet steam to go against that creator. And this is exactly what happened to Nerd City. Nerd City crashed out in the r/YouTube drama subreddit. These replies were unhinged, and he replied a lot. Nerd City would say that he wasn't looking for the subreddit, but I feel like that was a lie. Now, because there are literally a ton of Reddit replies from Nerd City, it was hard to go through them all. Instead, here's a small snippet of Dangelo Wallace's video where Dangelo shows some of the most unhinged replies to these trolls on the subreddit. And I think we're giving Nerd City a little bit too much credit. These really weren't even trolls until he pushed them to the limit. At first, they were actual viewers of his channel and were being critical of his videos, but I wouldn't call them trolls. Here's the video.
People complaining about your NFTs on the internet, he would be rolling in his grave, or he would be rolling in our grave. So this person points out that Nerd City's crypto project didn't even work. It, quote, collapsed almost immediately. And they're kind of pointing out how the fact that Nerd City is continuing to promote it anyway is really just the sunk cost fallacy. In other words, it's that phenomenon where people think, oh, I've put so much into it, I can't abandon it now, but logically you would gain more by just letting it go. And so to beat the sunk cost fallacy allegations, Nerd City's unironic answer was, it didn't fail because it can never fail as long as I add value to it. And sure, it's totally not successful at all, but really that's just because he's so ethical with it. That's not my priority number one. I won't sacrifice my morals for financial optics, said the NFT salesman to the random Redditor. It didn't fail because it can never fail as long as I add value to it. In response to someone mentioning the sunk cost fallacy, this is the biggest lack of awareness I've ever seen. Holy copium. You're selling NFTs. What the hell do you mean you won't sacrifice your morals for financial gain? You already did it. So he's morally right because he's a complete failure and he's being canceled by the woke Marxist mob who are like mildly annoyed by his YouTube videos. But that is kind of just the beginning of the wild takes we're gonna get from Nerd City in this video. This is how a stupid person talks, by the way. Watching a known YouTuber melt down in front of my eyes is way more entertaining than I thought it would be. To which this person has whipped out the popcorn. And you know what? Same. I'm having fun. I'm not ashamed to admit it, and I hope you are too. Imagine thinking NFTs are an honest product in the year of our Lord 2024. Bro, I got some tulips to sell you. Why is the YouTube drama subreddit a Marxist cope fest? Fascinating. But the Marxist Cope Fest was fighting back. So Nerd City claims he found the thread because he Googled his name to search for a meme he made. I'm reading all these lame lies. Are you thrilled? Teehee, you did it, Reddit. This is actually unhinged. Did the parasitic worm in your brain become as stagnant as your subscriber count? Clearly something must not be working. What would make you think I prioritize subscriber growth? Proof you don't understand me at all. He's too good of a person to make money in his business. He's just too good of a YouTuber to actually gain subscribers. He loses them every time he uploads, and we just don't understand him. Like, this perpetual victim mentality is genuinely stunning to me. And so Nerd City calls this person a loser, to which they respond with just the worm emoji by itself. And this is the part of the video where I actually want you to stop and guess what's about to be said. So people are flinging insults back and forth. One person's a loser. That person says you have a worm in your brain. So what do you think Nerd City's comeback is? What is the worst possible thing he could accuse this person of being? You got your answer. You've locked it in. Okay. Throw that away because I promise you did not guess correctly. Cat owner spotted. Cat owner. You're called.
These replies really show the insecurity of a man who lacks confidence in the real world, which is honestly pretty sad because he had almost 1 million subscribers, so criticism shouldn't have bothered him to a point where he'd spend hours upon hours fighting with trolls online. But he did. But this would only get worse, because on the TBH podcast that he was a co-host of with Colossal's Crazy, Dull and Dark, and Pyrocynical, Nerd City would actually defend DrDisrespect even after he admitted that he did message a minor.
And that's why he was let go. And it's way worse than you could even imagine. And he knew it was a minor. And then he was grooming this fan of his to meet up at TwitchCon, and that's when they pulled the plug. Is they were basically trying to protect this fan of his from a sexual encounter, and then he was reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And then there's another camp of people who claim to be former Twitch employees that say, okay, Twitch was split into two camps. There were people who had decided that DrDisrespect was toxic and had to go, and there was another group of people who thought that he was a big star and the other side was crazy. And the people who decided he had to go, we were all aware that it was a matter of time before they found some way to get him. And what they did is deliberately misinterpret. There was basically like he was providing some service where he would, if you were a wannabe Twitch streamer, he would coach you into getting more views on Twitch or something. And he said that they said the name of that service within DrDisrespect's community had like an innuendo in it and could be read multiple ways. So when I read that, I was like, okay, it must have been called something like Mustache Rides or like the Big Dick Club or something, or the Dick and Bigoting Club, right? So somebody, do you know what the name of it was? Just because, like, look, if it's real and he actually was like wildly inappropriate with a minor, if he was grooming them to meet up, if anything like that really looks the way they're making it sound, okay. But I do have a doubt in my mind, because think about what was going on with Twitch at that time. There was someone from the trust and safety team who had the pronouns of deer, right? It's like they were running a very, very woke contingent of that company. And so I can see them maybe thinking that DrDisrespect is not the kind of guy that they wanted to have be a star anymore. And so for the greater good of, maybe having someone like IShowSpeed or Kai Cenat be the star, we got to knock off this toxic masculine guy, this white guy, right? So like, I just want to make sure that this was not a fucking dirty trick played on him.
This again was hypocritical because Nerd City constantly called out other creators for terrible behavior aimed towards children, but for some reason, he'd defend DrDisrespect and pretty much say it's a conspiracy going on behind the scenes of Twitch so that IShowSpeed and Kai Cenat could be at the top of the platform. A lot of casual viewers never saw this side of Nerd City before, but the more they'd learn about him, the less they'd like his content and him. People hated this episode of the podcast and felt like Nerd City was out of pocket for trying to say that Twitch was going woke, and that's why they canceled DrDisrespect. Some people wrote, very weird long-ass defense of DrDisrespect. Bro literally admitted it. Having inappropriate conversations with a minor regardless makes you a freak. And even the usage of that term sounds like a downplay. This is a pure and exotic strain of cringe, and this devil's advocate bullshit is causing me great stress. What a shit show. And as soon as you throw a possible conspiracy into the mix, it seems like Nerd just fixates on that possibility and fills in the blanks where there's no evidence. Yeah, DrDisrespect admitted he did it, but a Twitch employee had their pronouns, so maybe they could have forced poor DrDisrespect to a minor because he's too masculine. There were a lot of other comments criticizing this part of the episode, and they all had the same theme. They hate Nerd City's offense of DrDisrespect. Around the same time, Nerd City would also be called out for his views about transgender people, which made him even more of a hypocrite, defending the LGBTQ community during videos, but then backtracking in private. With the self-sabotage that Nerd City was doing to his brand and the podcast, he'd eventually leave the TBH podcast. He'd post a huge message in the Discord. A lot of this message is just yapping for the sake of yapping, so I'll dissect this message and point out the main reasons for why he wanted to leave. believe. In this message, he'd say, that did not remain the case over time. By far, it's Pyrocynical who has the largest fan base of the 4 hosts. And once he started to link to the TBH podcast in the end cards of Pyro Live, it picked us up and changed our demo dramatically. Jay would also work Pyro's face into our thumbs and his name in titles, which boosted our subscriber growth by a lot and strengthened the connection to Pyro's channel. More people were interested in Pyro as a topic than they are in Nerd, Colossal, or Dolan. So as the strategy continued to work, the top comments changed from telling the rest of us to replace Pyro to telling the rest of us to sit back and stop yapping so much, and just make fun of him now and then. Another thing became increasingly clear. Most topics that I think are interesting will bore Pyro viewers to death. Nerd would continue this huge message with, as a creator, I like to work on content that people will enjoy. And unfortunately, there was a feedback loop where the more I tried to take a backseat on leading our discussions, the more that the minority of viewers who joined from my channel would politely tell me that they didn't like this podcast anymore. And to be honest, I started feeling increasingly unhappy creating low effort work to the show. There's been a push and pull where I always wish the show could represent something more useful to people. So to be honest, the way this all turned out made me feel pretty angry the past week. And by complaining openly, I tried to force my co-hosts to see how bad things really are. The most maddening thing is, I believe we recorded a pretty good episode in TBH 31, and a surprising amount of people even said it was their favorite, or the best episode yet. But in spite of that, it still missed the mark by a lot with Pyro's subreddit. So a few days ago, I lashed out at Pyro over this, in public and in private, because I felt like he wasn't defending our show when it got heat from his fans. My thinking was that since it's his viewers that we cater to now, then he should speak up or correct the record if his fan base attacks us unfairly. But obviously, criticizing Pyro isn't going to fix his fat, smelly subreddit or his belching, gaseous Discord. And it also wasn't fair to place the blame between Pyro's big, sweaty moves. The state of TBH actually isn't any particular host's fault at the end of the day. It's the result of the decisions we all made. And it's equally been my doing too. I, for one, could have been uploading more and balancing the scales in our listeners. So in one manner of speaking, it was Pyro's prolific upload schedule that kept TBH in business at all. Now, I'm assuming that his big issue with the podcast was that it went on a different route than where he wanted it to go. He probably wanted it to have deeper intellectual topics, but with Pyro being in the mix, he felt like he was making slop content and was trapped. He says that it's not Pyro's fault, but then he'll go into Pyro's subreddit to bash him. TBH posted a clip of the pod saying that Nerd City left the podcast.
Right, Nerd is no longer a member of this podcast. He decided to leave amicably. He will not be featuring in any more episodes. He decided to leave of his own volition. We wish the best to him. There was a little bit of drama going on in the little gay Discord server that we have, and something stemmed from there. He turned to Reddit, and it was a disaster, a downhill slope.
In peace. Sounds like we're at a wake or something.
So we're going to have a lot of comments saying the asylum has reopened, the inmates are running the asylum again. We're going to have all that.
Now we will.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to happen anyway, so may as well.
The podcast will lose a bit of structure, so we should do the most unstructured episode yet.
There are so many videos of people calling out Nerd City for not being able to take constructive criticism. And even if he's questioned about his work, even slightly, then he'll crash out before crashing out was even cool. This just spilled over to Reddit where his unhinged rants would be amplified, and even though he tried to make it seem like the constant criticism didn't bother him, it obviously did, seeing that Nerd City looked up his name to see if anyone was speaking badly about him. And then he'd take it a step further and respond to every single person who criticized him or questioned him. It's bizarre, and outside of the few responses that I showed in this video, if you just look at his profile on Reddit, you could see the level of unhinged he really is. He literally writes books to defend himself and then later says that it doesn't bother him. That just doesn't make any sense. I feel like he lacks confidence in himself. That's why he overcompensates with his editing. But the moment people call out his video, that's when you could see the instability of a man. This definitely gives me BHD vibes with being so upset at even a comment where he has to go defend himself by taking time out of his day to respond to random people on Reddit. Nerd City turned into a lolcow overnight because of how he responded to people on Reddit, and it's crazy because even he knows that it was a waste of time to reply to these comments because he doesn't view these trolls as real people who like his content. So why take time out of your day to respond when they will just make more content about you? He lost his audience because people started to realize that he was two-faced and acted completely different behind the scenes. His defense of DrDisrespect only made people more upset with him, and it definitely took away from his credibility by spreading a conspiracy that Twitch was out to get DrDisrespect. To this day, I don't know if he did this to get clipped or if he did this to eventually get kicked off of the podcast. But regardless, it was terrible for his brand. But how do you feel about Nerd City? Do you think he's a great content creator with bad morals? Let me know in the comments down below. While you're down there, it would be awesome if you subscribed to the channel and left a like on the video to help the video out and help us get closer to 200,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.